Hi, welcome back to my channel, and today is another story time, so let's get into it. Now this happened in 2016, I believe, and I was working for the government, and this office was packed full of people. It was like 40 something people in not a very large space, and it was open concept. So it was just like a big room, lots of desks, and my my section, we all had our tables facing each other so that we could work together and talk easily. And it wasn't always like that, but we decided to do that because it would be more fun. Now this guy, his name, I don't even want to give him like somebody's name, but we'll give him the name Kevin. And Kevin was just this weird guy. Now he was working on contract, so his contract only had a few months left on it when I came to work there. And Kevin was just weird. Like, he would stay to himself, but then when he interacted with you, he would just say some stuff like you wouldn't even understand where that came from. And he was just always out of timing, for lack of a better expression. And he just gave me the creep. And he would smell weird. Like, he would smell sweaty. Like, any time of the day he would just smell sweaty. And one time he told this other woman who was working there that sometimes he comes to work late because he stays back to watch this woman in his neighborhood go to work. Like, this guy creepy, yo. Like, this guy super creepy. And one day I actually got a workplace injury on this shoulder. I lifted something heavy, and then that night I couldn't move it, and so the next day I didn't go to work. I had to go to the doctor and get x-rays and stuff. Turns out like I damaged something with the ligament, whatever, and I didn't go to work. So I didn't go to work the next day, but the day after that I did go back to work and let them know that I was injured and all this sort of stuff. I'd have to take it easy. And I was like, guys, last night I couldn't even move my hand. Today it hurting so much. Like, I had it in a sling. Like, that's how bad it was. And he turned around. Well, he didn't have to turn around. He was facing me. He was like, oh, maybe your hand hurting you because you was using it too much last night. So I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, he laughed and he was like, don't study it. So I was like, no, what that's supposed to mean? And he was like, oh, you was like playing with yourself too much now. So I was like, what? Like, you don't know me to make that kind of jokes, like, we hardly have much interaction. Where I come from? So I was stunned. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was looking around like, what? So I literally, my response was, he was eating a Shirley biscuit, and I told him, I was like, listen, Kevin, you need to just continue to eat your Shirley biscuit and leave me alone. Have nothing to tell me, please. And he laughed and he was like, whatever, let's can't take a joke. So that rubbed me the wrong way, and everybody else in the section was like, that was very inappropriate to say to somebody and rel out of timing, because we weren't even making any kind of bad jokes like that or anything. So I was talking to this other girl who used to work in our section, but she got moved, and I was telling her about what happened because everybody was talking about it. And she told me that she actually had a weird interaction with him where he suggested something sexual to her as well, out of the blue. And I was like, that's so weird and disgusting. Like, what do you think it is? This is our workplace. Come to find out now, we started talking about it around this other girl. She came in and told us that he actually asked her about sexual experiences she had with her husband, and if her husband was the first person she ever had sex with. And nobody was talking about sex. Nobody was talking about being a virgin or anything like that. And he just came up and started to ask her about her sex life with her husband. So when we started talking to all the women in the workplace, we realized that each one of us had a weird and disturbing experience with him basically sexually harassing us. And we couldn't believe it because we all thought we each had like a one-off weird experience, but it turns out to be a pattern of behavior. So we couldn't believe it, and we were like, listen, we have to do something about this because this guy is really weird. And not only that, but where we were working, police officers used to come in to find out information. And one day a police officer asked our supervisor who Kevin was, and she told him, well, he's just a guy who came to work on contract here. And she asked him, well, why are you asking about Kevin? And he was like, I come here often and I don't like the way he watches the women who work in here, especially like women, if they're bending over to pick up something, he will always like see him trying to look under their skirt and stuff like that. And my supervisor was shocked because she didn't notice it, and he was like, yeah, so keep an eye on that guy. And when all of this came to light, the same girl he asked about her sexual experiences with her husband, she caught him trying to look up her skirt once, or at least was like bending down and looking up like that, and she had on a skirt. And when we realized, okay, this is a pattern of behavior and everybody's noticing it, we came together as a group, all the women who had experiences with him, and we took it to our boss, and we let her know what was going on. Each one of us told her what we experienced with him, and she was like, okay, this is a serious situation. I'm filming. And that, yeah, this is a serious situation and it has to be addressed. So all of us write down a written report about it. And the next day she called him in her office, and along with the HR personnel, whoever that was, and they spoke to him and let him know that he was reported for his behavior, and let him know that that was not something that he would be able to do in the office. It's wrong, it's sexual harassment, and they were going to actually fire him. But so happened he only had 2 weeks left on his contract, so they told him that they wanted to fire him, but they were going to just let him work out the 2 weeks contract, because if you fire someone who's on contract, it has a lot of legal steps you have to take, especially in a government position. So it was easier to just let him work out the 2 weeks. They told him not to have anything to do with any of the female staff, and he took it upon himself to write a letter of apology to each one of us. But I didn't want that. I mean, I took it, I read it, but I really was not interested in what he had to say, because he was obviously a pervert. But yeah, I took the letter of apology. He asked me if I forgave him. I told him no. And yeah, he left and we never saw him again, thank God. His report that he was sexually harassing members of staff was put into his file for the government. So if he ever wanted to get a contract with the government again, that would be in his file, and so he probably will not be selected to work in the government on any other occasion. And I just want to, moral of the story, don't let these things slide. Like, don't just brush it off and continue working with somebody who makes you feel uncomfortable, and don't keep it to yourself. If I kept it to myself, he would have gone on to continue to do these things, and nobody would have known. He would not have had any sort of record about it, and through talking about it, everybody realized that they had an experience and it was a pattern of behavior. So don't stay quiet about these things and don't just brush it aside, because this could be something serious, and in this case it was. And you can't have somebody like that. You can't have a pervert working with everybody. So moral of the story there. Hope you enjoyed the story today. I know it was just a little short story, but that's what happened. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.